off this Monday with some awesomeness from Sherese Nix. She is from Garland ISD in Texas, Garland USA, actually. And she's going to share a little bit more about the GISD effect and what that means. We're going to dive into how she's using it to really celebrate everything in their school and really empowering all students, all staff, all like even partnerships and organizations that deal with the school in this common feeling of how they're impacting the world, which I love. Now, they're a big school district of 55,000 students. It's huge. She actually has a department of 40, but I'm telling you, big schools or small schools, listen up, because Sherese has a lot of great advice. She's going to share kind of how they support their schools in telling their story. We're going to dig into one of the best stories that they've been able to share, and then her best tips on social media for you. You are not going to want to miss 1 second of this interview with Sherese Nix. Now, before we dive into it, I just want to remind you, it's the end of May. You're wrapping up the greatest school year ever. If you are feeling like social media'd out, like you're kind of over it, right? You're just losing your passion for it just because we've kind of been beat down over these last couple years. I want to make sure that you've got on your schedule to join our membership group. Now, I give a lot of free things away, like this podcast, like my blogs. You guys, I serve a dedicated group of people every single day with training and support and inspiration and a community inside my membership group. So check it out. And what I'm going to ask is that, you just ask your superintendent or your supervisor to be a part of this membership group. Okay. You can head over to my website, socialschoolforedu.com, to learn a little bit more about it, all the details. But what I'm telling you is the worst thing that can happen is if you ask, your superintendent or supervisor is going to know that you are interested in professional development. Is that a bad thing? That you want to grow and, improve and do an even better job of amplifying your school district story? No, that's not a bad thing. The worst thing that can happen is they know you want to improve and maybe they say no. If you don't ask the question, the answer is no. So I was just talking with actually an executive assistant just the other day. She wanted to cry when I started explaining all of the awesome things that are available inside our membership group, like training, like our Canva directory, all of our resources that are just a click away to help her do her job better. All the inspiration from other schools of what's working now. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can just quickly do this and it's going to help my engagement. It's amazing. One low price for the whole year of support. You want to jump in now. And I'm telling you, you jump in now and sign up. You're not going to pay until July, which is the new fiscal year. So some of you are worried about it not being in your budget. You guys ask. Schools spend money all the time on things that aren't necessarily line itemed in their budget. So ask, get signed up. I want to see you in there. All right, now let's get to this week's K12 PR tip. All right, this week's K12 PR tip is all about summer content. You guys might be like, oh my gosh, what am I going to share this summer? Well, I want to tell you, your posting over the summer months is not the same as what you do during the school year, okay? A great goal would be one thing a day on Facebook. Maybe one thing a week on Instagram. And, Twitter's not as big in our area. If it's big for you, you could definitely tweet once a day and do your retweets. But how you get that content is really looking at some of the features that you can do, like Throwback Thursday, like a teacher feature, like a student feature. Maybe it's a fun fact Friday about the school and how many meals you served over this past school year or things like that. Because building around those foundational features are going to give you enough content to where you have 3 or 4 days already taken care of. And you can bet your bottom dollar there's going to be things that you want to celebrate over the summer, or some pieces of information that you do need to share about the upcoming school year, back to school night, all of those types of things. So that is what some of your summer can look like. Now, one of the great ideas that we've got is getting user generated content, which is your followers giving you things. Another great idea is just where in the world is, your school district, right? And maybe they're wearing one of your t-shirts or one of your hats. They submit that picture into you. And that is something that, Jamie Brace in Oklahoma did that, and she had 50 submissions. Gosh, how many days, weekdays are there around the summer? There might only be about 50 days. So she's covered once a day just with that one contest. So I just want to give you permission. It is okay to take a break, and it is great to work ahead so that you can take a break and there's still content going out there, but it definitely does look different. I do want to say, if you're doing summer school, hey, you can post pictures of summer school. That's great. That's great content to be able to share. And there usually are other activities going on in the summer as well. So I hope that tip helps. Now let's jump in to our interview with Sherese Nix. Good morning, Sherese. Welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, Andrea. Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. We got Wisconsin and Texas coming together. We've had other lovely guests from Texas as well. But everyone, I'm excited for you to meet Sherese Nix. She's the Executive Director of Communications for Garland ISD, which is a big district in Texas. We've gotten to meet a couple times in person at the Teepro conference. So just to kick things off, Sherese, why don't you share your background and some of your role there at Garland?
Sure. Hello to everybody. Thank you for listening and tuning in. I am Sherese Nix, and I come to you in a different capacity than most communications people do. I started off as a teacher, and I went into administration. So I served 6 years as an assistant principal, both at an elementary and a high school level. And then I was actually a principal for 4 years at an elementary school. And so those opportunities were phenomenal because they gave me the opportunity to really learn schools and learn how to communicate with the stakeholders and be able to connect with parents and students and teachers. And from there, I got a call to apply for Chief of Communication role in Lancaster ISD, and I serve in that capacity. And then now I'm in the great Garland USA district, where I serve as the Executive Director of Communications. And I've been here almost 2 years now.
Okay. And so how long have you been in school communications total?
Actually, it's not long, actually. Probably maybe 4 years now.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, 4 years. So I have a degree in communications, but I thought that I was going the leadership route. And so I thought possibly I'd get into maybe HR or something like that. But when something's in you, it's going to come out.
Yeah, I love that inspiration, because we have all sorts of listeners. And so there may be some principals, some superintendents even that are listening. And I know that there's other folks around that have come that route as well. So it's just interesting. And you have that leadership capacity, and you were a teacher. So you've really been able to leverage that experience, don't you think, in your role now?
Absolutely, because sometimes a lot of communications people, which is great, they have journalistic backgrounds, or they come from the news, or they have come from marketing directly out of college. And so sometimes when we're tailoring messages, understanding the seat and the role that a principal plays and a teacher plays, I'm like, no, guys, we need to kind of say it this way, because I then put myself in that role when I was a principal. I remember how this affected our campus. And so I'm able to draw on those experiences. And it's just been, to me, the world of a difference.
Yeah, definitely. So Garland USA, that's a term you've kind of coined. I'd love to hear about that. And then just explain a little bit more about like the size of Garland ISD and kind of the setup of your communications department. I think that would be good for listeners to hear.
Sure, absolutely. So I can't take credit for Garland USA. Our superintendent, Dr. Lopez, coined that phrase when he came to Garland. And so he said, we're not just Garland, we're Garland USA. And our reach reaches nationwide. And that's how we came to the GISD Effect. And we can talk about that a little later. But Garland is so big. We are a district that serves 72 campuses. We often laugh to say that Dallas is our biggest suburb here in North Texas. because we are the second largest district in Dallas County. We average about 55,000 students. And so we're a very large district, and we're very proud of the work that we're doing here. And we want to empower our teachers to tell their story about the great things that are happening in Garland. The interesting thing is that we service 3 cities. We're Tri-Cities school district. So we service Garland, Rowlett, and Saxe. And so that's always an anomaly. Like, how do you communicate messages to fit the needs of each of those individual cities, but still have a collective whole message? So that's something that's always fun to do and challenging. The department that we serve, and so there's about 40 people in my department, and we service communications report to me, web services, our print services, our Garland Education Foundation, our translation, and I think that's it. I think those are the departments that report directly to me. Oh, and our TV, our GRS TV, our print, our TV department reports to me as well.
Holy cow. So all of a sudden, I am so thankful that we got to talk. I know we were supposed to actually chat yesterday, and you had a crisis come up, and with 55,000 students, I mean, I can imagine that happens quite often. So you are the executive director for all of those different areas. And then I'm assuming that each of those departments kind of has like their own manager or lead.
Cool. So the direct reports, each of those that I named to you, those are the department leads. And so under each of them, they have their own people that help manage that department. So for example, communications, we have a graphics, we have someone who does social media, we have someone who does marketing. In our print services, we have people who run all of the operations of printing. Our GRS TV, we have, I think, maybe four people that work under that department that help go get videos and things like that for the district. So everybody has their own department and they all report to me.
Okay, awesome. There's a lot of people listening that are single shops, but obviously they don't have 55,000 students. So,
but Andre, here's the thing, I can relate to those people because when I worked in Lancaster ISD, there was a department of 3 of us. And so I understand again, how you go from pretty much a 2-3 man shop to now. When I first got here, I was like, whoa, it was a big shift for me because I went from so small to so big in such a short period of time. So even for me, it was a learning curve, how to navigate this role and how do I position myself to be the best leader that I can be to serve my staff.
Yeah. Well, I think, enabling everyone to be a storyteller, right, is something you truly, truly believe. So let's talk about the shirt you had on at Teepro. That was so cool. It had the Garland effect on it.
Yes.
And so kind of what does that mean? What message does it send? Let us know. And then I should get a picture of you, or at least the t-shirt, so I can share that in the show notes with folks, because I think they would really like it.
I'll be more than happy to do that. So, every year when you're trying to think of a theme or, a hashtag for the year. So last year we were really trying to say, we're really trying to evolve our department. And like you said, empowering the teachers and administrators in our district to take ownership of the stories that they're going to be telling. And so we kept thinking, well, what can we do? How can we brand it? What's going to stick? What's going to have an impact? And so we came up with the GISD Effect. And so with that, it's changing lives and impacting futures. And when we thought, is everybody has an impact, whether you're a custodian, whether you're a bus driver, whether you're a food nutrition worker, whether you're a teacher, a principal, a central admin, something that you do every day is going to have an impact in a child's life. So why not understand that, recognize that, and empower and use that effect to make a positive effect or impact on our child's life. So that's how the GISD Effect came out, and it goes great with Garland USA because again, our reach is nationwide. When people leave our district, when students graduate, when they go to their homes or to their families, we want them to have a positive experience. We want them to have a positive story to tell about our district. And that's how the effect, it's almost like the multiplier of the butterfly effect. It's like, it goes here, it goes there, and then before you know it, it's everywhere. And so again, we just want our staff to know, and our teachers and our students to know that you are the GISD Effect. you every day have that impact. It doesn't have to be a whole big campaign. It's what you do every single day. How are you going to maximize on those opportunities? And what are you going to do in that moment to leave a lasting legacy for our district and for themselves?
It's so inclusive,
Mm-hmm.
for everyone, students, staff, paras, like,
Yeah.
leadership, teachers. So it's the GISD effect. I see that
Mm-hmm.
hashtag on there. Can you tell me again? It's changing lives and impacting
Impacting
futures.
futures. Yes,
Okay.
changing lives. And even our community. When we have our stakeholder meetings, we tell our business owners, we tell our universities that we partner with, you guys are part of the GISD effect also. So again, it reaches far and wide. It just doesn't affect in district. It really is nationwide, and it reaches far. And so we're very proud of it, and it's catching on. So it's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
So do you try to do a different like theme like that each year, or do you think this is going to be something that you're going to carry on?
So my super's gonna kill me for saying this. So we were in a meeting and he was saying, okay, well, what's gonna be our theme for the next year? And I was like, it's the GISD effect. And he was like, well, that was last year. And I said, boss, it's so powerful. It's something that I feel is a staple that we need to brand as our district. Um, we may have variants of it, but I felt so strong about the GIC effect and the response that we saw on social media, and how we saw teachers hashtagging, how we saw kids saying, I am the GIC effect. And I said, I really think this needs to be standard in our district, just like Garland USA is kind of unofficial. And so he agreed that the impact that it's having, it's going to stay. Now we might, have a specific message that we might want to communicate throughout the year, but the GIC is here to stay. The GIC effect is here to stay, and I'm very super excited about that. So
I
thank you,
love
Dr.
it.
Lopez.
Yes, I love it too, because I think sometimes if you get something that sticks, and I just want to encourage everybody listening. Okay, this is gonna broadcast on May 23rd, so
Okay.
it's right at the end of the school year, but people are starting to think about next school year.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys listening have a strong hashtag, awesome. But if you don't, think about these
Mm-hmm.
words, whatever your school district is, and that word effect, and how
Mm-hmm.
that can impact. Like, you can totally admire and acquire, not if you're close, maybe not if you're in Texas, but maybe somewhere else, to grab that. And I think your point is so well taken. Like, when people start gravitating and people think in those terms, believe in themselves in those terms, like, that is when you've got yourself a brand that you
Absolutely.
can get behind. That's more than just a logo. It's more than just a
Mm-hmm.
saying. It's like who we are
Exactly.
and what we do.
Exactly. I mean, when you think about Nike, it's just do it. When you think about Subway, it's eat fresh. When you think about Coke, there's certain brands that when you think, your mind automatically goes to whatever that marketing tool is. And that's what I want to do here in Garland ISD. When you hear Garland USA, you're going to think Garland USA, and you're going to think the GIC effect. And again, it's people taking ownership of it and empowering them to understand again that they are the effect. So the inclusivity of that, the ownership, it's just so powerful, and I'm glad it's going to stay.
Yeah, me too. I love it. So you've got this strong, hashtag, this strong brand, and then that obviously feeds itself into social media. I mean, it goes beyond social media as well, but
Mm-hmm.
why do you think social media is so important to a school district, and how do you encourage its use in your large school district?
I don't care if you're a small district or you're a large district, social media is a non-negotiable. I mean, everybody is on social media, whether you want to admit it or not. And I love how my counterpart, Jason, who's my director, and so he says, where else are people going to go to brag? You need some platform, right? When you get married, when you have a grandbaby, people want to show off what they're doing. In the same way as school districts, just like people use social media as an opportunity to showcase and share the things that they're doing personally, why can we not do that as school districts? A lot of times school districts get caught in the traditional mean of we just have to use social media for a news platform. And I completely disagree with that. I do believe that it's important to share news, like information about the district, but why not share the great things that are happening? Why not share the stories? Why not tell how an amazing teacher had an effect on a kid, or how our students are excelling? Those things make communities feel, parents feel engaged, like their kids are valued, like we appreciate them. And again, it's just great to brag about what we're doing. It's a great marketing and recruiting tool. So there's so many benefits of why districts should use social media. It is a non-negotiable. And it's important to understand the different platforms and who are on those platforms, because the messaging should be different depending on the platform that you're using.
Yeah, definitely. So in a district your size, we're going to link your district accounts, okay? But obviously you have 72 campuses, and then you have many thousands and thousands of staff members. So tell me about how your school utilizes social media beyond just the district accounts.
So each school does have their own social media, and we ask that there's a manager for that. We do have login information as a database, because you do know staff turnover, principals turnover. So we ask that they not create they can create personal pages, but we recommend that they use school district our accounts, so that we can kind of manage and we can help support those efforts. And so every school does have their own social media, as well as departments, as well as athletic and different, fine arts. So it's big here in Garland. And more and more, I would say, staff is comfortable with using social media, and it's been very effective. So again, if you're in a district, small or large, you can always encourage your campuses. You can always hire my girl over here if you need some help with that. But you've got to find a way to utilize it. And our teachers, or whoever the managers are on their campus, are the ones who facilitate that work.
Yeah, we work with much smaller districts than Garland, right? And a lot of the schools we work with over 90 schools across the country, don't have a school PR person at all, for the most part, which I truly believe every school, small or large, needs a person dedicated to school communications. But I love how you really empower the schools to take advantage of it. You empower the staff. Do you have any kind of training available, or how do you support them to kind of make sure they're following best practices and those types of things? Do you have kind of a system for that?
So we have my web services department. We also, in addition to social media, we have a web service person designated to go in and help our web liaisons. And so often those people are the same people that use social media often. And so when we go in to train our webmasters on how to best utilize, that platform, then that's when we have the opportunity to train them on social media as well. Now, last year in Garland, like, I specifically did a training to all of the coaches in our district, because we have so many, and was sharing with them the value of being able to market their athletes, and and how that platform is so big, especially on Twitter, to recruit the athletes, or to showcase what they're doing so that colleges and universities can look at them. And so I personally trained all of the coaches on the importance of the use and how to use different social media platforms. So there are ways. I have not yet trained all of the teachers because it's so big, but we do have pockets where we're able to find a niche and train.
Yeah. And these last 2 years, Sherese, there's been a little bit of pandemic.
Just a little something.
These teachers, but they've probably embraced maybe social media a little bit more, just because of the increased communication needs. So, you have a lot of stories to tell. You've been a witness to many, many stories in your previous district, in your district now. What are some of the best stories that you've been able to share from your school on social media?
That's such a great question, like you say, because there's so many impactful stories. But one that resonates with me, and one that I absolutely love, there was a teacher, her name was Stephanie Hume, and she's here in Garland. And it was during COVID, actually, and she didn't have COVID, but she had to go to the hospital for a procedure. And she was committed and dedicated to her students. They were in the middle of a book study. And so her procedure required her to be out like a couple of weeks or so from her classroom. And the first thing she thought when the doctor told her that she'd have to have her procedure was, oh my gosh, my students are going to get behind on their novel, because she would read a chapter a day to her students. And so when she got to the hospital, she had her family bring her computer, her laptop, she got her Zoom set up. And even in the midst of her going through her procedure, even in the midst of her having pain, even in the midst of her in surgery, she committed herself and still had her book study in the hospital room with her hospital gowns, her hospital, attire. She committed, and that's what I love. She is the GISD effect. She was impacting lives, changing the futures of her students. And so she committed herself and did the Zoom and read with her students every day. That story took off like wildfire. People were commenting, sending her thanks and thank you for your dedication and all that you've done. And it even got national coverage. She was on Lester Holt, NBC. She got, of course, every local station here shared her story. But that's just the power of social media. It's the power of being able to tell your story, because you never know who's watching, you never know who's looking. And it's just a great opportunity. And the great thing about her, it was just from her heart. It wasn't anything that she was asked to do. It was what she wanted to do. And so Stephanie Hume, thank you for being an amazing teacher. You are the GISD effect, and we appreciate you giving back to your students in that capacity.
That's awesome. So I would ask, could you give me that link? Because then we'll share. I'm assuming that you ended up putting a video together about that story.
I'll have to go back and look to see. It was last year during COVID,
Okay.
but I'm sure we have plenty of stuff for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And my question would be, in a district your size, how did you find out about that story? Did a principal hear about it and then made sure it got to you? Or, how did that story get to you?
I can't remember, to be honest, Andrea.
Okay.
I think the principal reached out to us.
Okay.
And that is a challenge. I did feel like when I worked in a smaller district, I was more connected, to be honest. We only had one high school, so I knew the kids by name, I knew the teachers. Here in Garland, there's 7 high schools. And so, that's been a challenge for me, is how do I have the impact that I had at a previous district when it's so big? How do you get to know the stories? How do you get to know the kids when it's so large? And so again, that's why social media is important, because I may not be able to get on the campuses, but as I'm scrolling and checking the accounts, I'm able to say, oh, that's really cool. Hey team, let's get a story on that. Or hey, let's follow up. Again, the power of social media.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm sorry I put you on the spot, because of course
Okay.
it's like, how do you know? But the big thing is that you've got that hashtag out there within the leadership team. Hopefully it is instilled that, hey, these stories happen every day. Every day in your 72 schools, there's something that actually deserves to be on the national news. I can guarantee it. In any school district, we just have to make sure that everybody's voice feels heard, and that, we can't maybe amplify every single one, but we can amplify a lot, and that represents our district. And so I love that story of that staff member.
You always hear, and I've said this before, people don't remember what you teach them, they remember how you make them feel. And I think the same is true for a school district. I mean, I believe in creating experiences. When you connect with people, when you provide an opportunity where people feel valued and valuable and appreciated and loved, that's when people want to come to your district. That's when people say, hey, I want that teacher. Hey, I want my kid to go to that school. I want to come to that district, because you're creating an experience. And that's what we want to do in Garland. And so it's shifting the mind frame. If those of you are out there, and it's just my belief, I don't, it's just me, but if you're just only putting out factual information, like this is the lunch menu, here are the bus schedules, here's start and end time of school, I think you're really missing an opportunity to have a greater impact in your district. Find the stories, embed them in the news information. It's okay to do that. And so I'm changing the mindset here, and it's been received well. And I'm thankful that we're now focusing more on the story aspect.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I preach that every day. So we're right in line. So as we wrap up, what would you say is your best social media tip? You probably have a lot and you've shared a lot already, but do you have one thing that you'd like to say as kind of your best social media tip?
Yeah, I believe in controlling your narrative. I believe in telling your own story. People, and I've said this before, people are going to talk about you anyway. So give them something to talk about. Find the positive things that are going, control your narrative, push positive messages. It just eliminates a lot of the negativity, and you're able to promote the great things that are happening in your district or even you individually. So for me, it's just staying on top of it, control your narrative, be consistent with your messaging, and just have fun with it. Don't take it too seriously.
Right. Yeah, I love that. So, Sherese, our listeners want to stay connected to you. What is the
Okay.
best way?
You guys, you can follow me on Twitter. It's Sherese, SHERESE _Nix, NIX. I would love for you guys to follow me, and I'll follow you back so I can learn from you guys as well.
That is great. Well, you're going to have a bunch of new followers. So at Sherese _Nix, we'll also have that linked in the show notes. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. I really, really appreciate it. Keep up the great work there in Garland, USA.
Thank you, honey. Thank you so much for having me, and goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. We'll see you guys next week with another great episode of the Mastering Social Media for Schools podcast. Bye-bye.
Bye.